Hello, you're watching World Talks on TVP World. My name is Sasha Farbach. Trump's actions risk a dangerous downward spiral. Our European leaders warned this week in a joint statement by the U.K, Denmark, Finland, France, Germany, the Netherlands, Norway, and Sweden as threats of new tariffs over Greenland strain transatlantic diplomacy. The move has sparked protests and forced Europe's far-right parties, once courted by the White House, to reconsider their alliances. Now, joining us to discuss the implications for U.S.-Europe relations is Scott Lucas, Professor of American Studies, University College Dublin. Good to have you back on TVP World, as always.
Thank you so much, Sasha. Great to be here.
So let's begin with just, let's see if we can put it all together, but the latest, I mean, these threats from President Donald Trump against a NATO ally, now coercion tactics in a way, economic coercion. What, in your mind, how much damaging can this rhetoric already be for that transatlantic alliance? Is this the beginning of more? How do you see the impact of all this, just from your view?
Well, I mean, let's state where we are and consider how much worse it could get. The starting point here is there is no alliance between the Trump camp and Europe. That alliance that we've had since World War II with most of Europe, and then with more of Europe after 1991, including Poland, the Trump camp don't believe in that. And the attack on Greenland, whether we're talking about the demand to seize it economically or whether we're even talking about the threat of a military invasion, is part of a broader Trump belief that the European Union should be broken up. On the specifics of where we are with Greenland, I still don't believe that the United States will invade per se, but there's a piece of news yesterday that almost everybody missed. The Trump camp announced that they had put on standby for deployment the 11th Airborne Division of the U.S. Army. Now, they said, oh, this might be because we have to intervene in Minnesota, where, of course, Immigration and Customs Enforcement are ripping up communities. But that 11th Airborne Division is America's only specialist Arctic division. It's based in Alaska. Now, where is Greenland based? Yeah, you know it's in the Arctic. So you even had the possibility that this unit is not being deployed to go into Minnesota, but being deployed to go into Greenland. Even if you don't have that deployment, the rhetoric from Trump and those who are alongside him, not all the administration agree, but those who are alongside them, is effectively saying, you do what we want, and we will let you be. You give us Greenland, we'll let you be. You don't give us Greenland, not only is there no alliance, we will attack you, at least economically and politically, as in Trump's tariff threat. Europe has to stand together against that. This is very straightforward.
Yeah. I mean, in many ways, all this is happening very fast, and we've had that emergency meeting of ambassadors in Brussels of EU member states. Now, there's supposed to be an emergency EU summit of leaders, also likely towards the middle end of this week. We have Davos as well, which will see quite a lot of Trump's entourage if he does make it there. That's kicking off on Monday. He's supposed to attend this time around, with also looking at the lineup here, Rubio. We've got also the Commerce and Treasury Secretary. But with this kind of messaging, again, is this a kind of, do you still see this as a negotiating strategy of Trump? What does he really want? Does he really want this territory? What can we expect in these next few days once he's on the ground in Europe speaking to European leaders?
I mean, the Trump tactics have been the same for 50 years, whether he is a businessman or whether he's a politician, and that is he tries to bully others into submission so he can get what he wants. Now, in this case, what Trump and his minions are trying to do, including on the Sunday morning talk shows yesterday, is to try to bully Denmark and Greenland by using this false narrative that Greenland has no arrangements for its security at this point, and only the U.S. can provide them. And when Denmark and Greenland say, well, no, this is a matter of our sovereignty, it's a matter of whether Danes want to negotiate over this. It's a matter for Greenlanders whether they want to be part of the United States. Then Trump tries to bully them further and says, okay, 10% on the European countries who've shown support by putting small, groups of military personnel into Greenland, and I'll raise it to 25% in June if you don't give me what I want. We've seen this more broadly with the tariffs on Europe. The difference here is that with no legal cause to take Greenland, with no security cause to take Greenland, Trump is threatening the security of Europe completely and does not care about it. And just remember this fundamental, Sasha. If this was a security issue about China and Russia in those waterways that are opening up because of the melting of the Arctic camp, a good ally, the United States, would consult with NATO about how to develop the defense of Greenland rather than insulting and trashing NATO while threatening the Danes and threatening the Greenlanders.
Mm-hmm. And also, I mean, you mentioned bullying. I mean, this is a tactic that MAGA camp often uses. In some ways, this is something that seems to be also somewhat welcomed by certain other political aligned camps. Also in Europe, there's been that bridge trying to be built between MAGA forces and also into the far right, if that's in Germany, AfD, if that's other players around the continent. But they have also been recalibrating because of this. I mean, if we look at one of Trump's close allies, looking at a friend, that's Giorgia Meloni, the Prime Minister of Italy, calling all this a mistake. Looking also at the AfD, looking also at the far right in France. Is the far right here also recalibrating? Are they changing their mind about Donald Trump and his MAGA movement?
I think when you talk about hard right or far right parties in Europe, that there's fundamentals that even they can't transgress. Giorgia Meloni, who's been very pragmatic in power. I mean, I think she, has moved away from her ideological positions. She's very much a supporter of the European Union, and she's very much a supporter of European security, as we've seen in terms of the defense of Ukraine. So there's no way she's going to support the Trump position. What's striking here is she isn't playing, like nice above board and then telling him this behind the scenes. She's gone public with this. The National Rally in France was already distancing itself from Trump's promotion of it to take over the government because they've got qualms about some of his other positions. AfD is probably the most striking example here because they had been pushed hard by the Trump camp, including by the person who I think may be even more important than Trump, the Vice President, J.D. Vance. And even they've had to say, well, no, this isn't acceptable because of post-1945 Germany. Its entire existence has been part of a developing European security, given where it came out of World War II. And I say other governments as well, and I say even the government in Poland, or at least the president in Poland, who of course had been supported by Trump. This for he is something where he has to stand up and say, no, I'm not just simply an acolyte of Donald Trump's. I'm going to stand up for Poland, I'm going to stand up for Europe, which means standing up for Greenland. And then just one more example, the Reform Party in the UK, where there has been a Trump mission since January 2025 to undermine the Labour government and put the Reform Party in power, using his former employee, Nigel Farage. Even Farage has had to come out and say, oh, no, this is a step too far. And again, that's why I think as horrible as this situation is, as damaging as this situation is, as threatening as it is, I don't think the Trump administration has good options here. I think they are bullying in part because they don't see a path to get Greenland. And politically, they cannot use the parties in Europe as their way in.
Mm-hmm. There's also this idea on European trade. I mean, we're hearing more about it now, this so-called EU anti-coercion measure. I mean, I'm not going to analyze it too much, but essentially it's called this, some are calling it this trade bazooka that the European Union has at its disposal, really supposed to be against forces a little bit more nefarious rather than using against a potential ally. I mean, is this again saber-rattling on the EU's case? Do you think that this would be something that, in your mind, European leaders would now think of more seriously deploying in the next, let's say, few weeks, if anything like that?
No, this is very real. The anti-coercion initiative was launched in 2023, or anti-coercion instrument was launched in 2023 because of China. The possibility that China could try to bully Europe into trade concessions or would pursue trade manipulation. Now you talk about it against the Trump administration. It was not used last year when Trump went tariff crazy. In the end, the EU held back on it and they accepted the 15% tariffs that Trump imposed. This time around, it's not just simply your economies you're talking about, it's your security. So this initiative, which would mean you could put tariffs on the 93 billion, at least 93 billion pounds, so about 100 billion euros in U.S. goods, and you could put tariffs on U.S. services. This is very real, because it was not only some officials who said this is a possibility, it was Emmanuel Macron, French president, who said it. I don't think they'll resort to it immediately. They'll try to get to the adults in the room in Washington to get Trump to climb down, and they will publicly try to dial down the temperature. But if Trump and J.D. Vance and the others are insistent, and if they do not remove the military option, then yes, I think the EU will go there.
All right. So we'll also get more of that as President Trump is in Davos in Europe this week, and that will give us a more sign of things to come. Look, we'll close it there. Thank you so much. As always, a pleasure. Professor Scott Lucas there. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching World Talks, but stay right here on TVP World for more news and commentary. Goodbye.